Taylor Swift is more than just a household name. Beyond the record sales, sold-out tours, and being universally acclaimed as the biggest pop icon since the Beatles, Taylor Swift's influence has redefined the role of a modern artist in today's world. Through her championing of social causes, messages of empowerment and self-acceptance, and single-handedly driving economic spikes everywhere she goes. Known as the Taylor Swift effect, the cultural icon's influence has had profound implications on everything from gender to fandom, from pop culture to literature, as well as the economy. Yet still, she can be seen by many as just another pop singer. Welcome to AUT Impact. I'm Dr. Rebecca Trelease from AUT's School of Communication Studies, and joining me today to discuss the Taylor Swift effect and how it's changing modern society is my colleague Angela Asuncion. Welcome, Angela.
Hello.
So what exactly is the Taylor Swift effect?
I suppose the Taylor Swift effect is just her impact and influence on not only pop culture, but culture and society as a whole and all the different facets of society. So economic culture, social media culture, all of these different areas, and the way that she kind of touches on in these areas, or she involves herself, and then suddenly it's just exploding into something that it wasn't before. It's insane.
And I guess we could kind of expect that she's making impact on a music industry, but it's flowing out into all these adjacent areas as well. So if she's breaking records and chart records, she's also changing the music industry with the re-recording of her previous albums,
sure.
As well as the contracts of various artists and when they're allowed to re-record at some point later in their career.
She's shifting how artists and music industry, or the people involved in the music industry, are using social media, how they are treating, how the relationship between producer or label and artist is, and all of the logistics behind that, kind of shifting it towards something that's a bit more fair, I think.
Well, she's had an impact on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah.
Withholding her content, or using her content and the need for the world to access her content in order to fight for other artists.
Yeah, and because of that, Spotify and other streaming services have shifted how they allow artists to use the platform. So allowing them to, without payment, have their music out there for anyone to listen to. It's not just being held behind a paywall or anything like that. And so there's freedom for artists, but then it's also the way they've shifted it means that there's a fairer compensation for artists and everyone involved in the music, in the creation of that music. Yeah.
And there have been artists across time who have ventured into political spaces, and we see Taylor encouraging, again, other people to get involved. It's not necessarily her own politics or her own endorsements that she's encouraging, but it's the getting involved of her fans in the specific voting regimes that are available to them.
Yeah, so more often when she speaks about these political aspects, she doesn't have a specific stance. She doesn't persuade anyone to go one way or the other. She just says, go out and vote. And I think there was that Instagram post where, I cannot remember what year it was, but the amount of people, or young people, that went out to vote increased by almost or more than double, I think it was. So just that impact there, where there is no sway in who you vote for. It's just a simple act of saying, hey, go vote, your voice matters. Or her line was, I've heard you at my concerts, you guys are really loud. How about we translate that loudness or that volume in this space and stand up for what we believe in, kind of thing, or what you believe in. So just that impact there, as well as being huge. And yeah.
And then we're able to see the process behind all of that with the various content that she's putting out in addition to her songs. So we have Miss Americana, which is available on Netflix, where she talks through releasing those posts and when she's encouraging people to vote or specifically to stand up and say something, she's very aware that she could be ending her career in that moment.
And we see that debate with her and her team and her dad, who's part of the team, kind of going, is this the right move? Because I suppose she is traditionally, or from the very beginning of her career, she was marked or branded as America's sweetheart. And America's sweetheart doesn't say such thought-provoking or potentially controversial things. And in that same documentary, she talks about being the good girl, always doing what's right. And this is something that might break those boundaries and break those stereotypes, which she's become very good at. And we see that dialogue there and how important it is for her to speak out, because I suppose she knows the impact that she would have. And just for young people to know that their voice can be heard is a message I think she's wanting to kind of spread across all her different avenues, all her different bits of content, and kind of that underlying aspect of empowerment, not just for females, but I suppose for young people, because she does have quite a very broad fan base.
Yeah, and there's the stereotypical idea that perhaps her fan base are just young girls. That's not necessarily the case. Her fan base can span generations, and it can also be a way in which those generations can come together. So it might be dads and daughters bonding over the Super Bowl. It could be grandparents trying to figure out the latest language. That what are the slang words that are being used these days?
And like mothers or older sisters trying to relate to their daughters or younger siblings, and kind of guide them, a different way to guide them through their lived experience in this society that we're living in.
And ultimately, she's trying to encourage them to be engaged. Like, she wants these relationships to be cultivated, and she wants people to be connecting. Not just to her, but with each other. Like that.
And she facilitates that with her own connection with her fans. She's there, she has stated in plenty of interviews with like BBC Radio 1, Jimmy Fallon, that she likes to meet her fans where they are. And I think that's what really works for her. Her fans are like, she's lived through this, she's telling these stories, that's my story. And it's a way that people can connect, share their experiences, relate to each other, no matter what age, gender, location, really even. It just brings people together, which is amazing. And a real incredible phenomenon, especially in an age where there's a kind of debate that we are a little bit more disconnected because we're always on our phones, on social media, but she has this way of integrating that into creating and reconnecting genuine connections. It's not just a screen that you're scrolling through and passively taking in content. Her fans and those that follow or listen to Taylor Swift actually engage, they speak to each other, they talk, they stitch TikToks, have threads in the comment section and all that stuff. So there's a small complex layering that's come from the Taylor Swift effect, I suppose.
And there's so much learning taking place as well. So if someone is using social media to create and stitch, you're learning technical skills, you're learning editing skills, delving into lyrics and figuring out what the references could be to past literature greats. You're encouraging people to actually go out and read and explore those aspects of literature. There's this underlying media literacy that she's actually kind of teaching everyone here.
For sure. It's not just, I suppose, when social media first came out, it was this thing that you could just look into people's lives. You were very much, it was a window or like window shopping, I suppose. But now people are in there, they're making it their own, using it as a tool, like in marketing, leveraging that to get the word out, to engage new audiences, current audiences, re-engage older audiences, which is all things that Taylor's done, with a career that spans, 17, 18 years. She's grown up with that evolution of social media, and she's evolved the way that she's using it. Even so, potentially paving the way of how people use that. I think a couple years ago, beginning probably around pandemic time, a lot of artists were feeling like their labels were forcing them to use TikTok and social media, because TikTok was like the lockdown social media platform. Yeah. But Taylor was like, my fans are there, I'm going to meet them there. And from there, she created this entire world of Swift talk on there, where millions of people would engage and create content. And through that, she was able to release, was it 5 albums since the lockdown, which is insane for an artist, because that was a time where the world was just shutting down. Artists weren't making music, they weren't in studios, they weren't touring, they weren't meeting fans. Yet she was still figuring out how to continue her career, because in that in her documentary The Long Pond Sessions on Disney Plus for her folklore album, she says over that pandemic and lockdown time she felt listless and kind of her purpose was gone, because music was essentially what she lived for, it's what she does. And she figured out it was like working from home Taylor's version. And she released these 2 pandemic albums, and she continued that for artists. She broke that kind of expectation or that feeling that artists felt had the pressure of. They were like, oh, we're in lockdown, we can't do this. That stress of going. Essentially, they lost their jobs too, but she was like, I'm not losing my job, I'm not losing my purpose, I'm going to go write some albums, create some stories. And she came out with these 2 incredible albums, and it kind of put her back on the map.
It's quite fascinating looking back to 2019 with Miss Americana. Mm-hmm. She released the album Lover, and she shares that this is possibly the last time, because of her age and gender, that in the music industry, this could be it for her career. Mm-hmm. She's going to like age out of being popular and of being new and having success. And so it's really strange now to look back like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And she not only kind of exceeded her own expectations, but everyone's expectations. Like, how do you go from, I don't know how much longer I can be in this industry, to owning and dominating the industry?
Yeah, it's insane what she's done. And it's this whole, I feel like now there's a cycle of Taylor Swift where traditionally, you see the female artist, no matter if it's the edgy female artist or the American sweetheart, they do in the past have this lifespan. But what we've seen with Taylor is she's created a cycle for herself. She's leveraged kind of a shift in society. So that pandemic, I suppose, was a giant shift in how we kind of function as society and culture. And she leveraged that to kind of create a new wave for herself. And I think it's something that other artists could potentially like learn from, or labels, and even further than that, really businesses, marketers can learn from it as well, that there doesn't have to be a beginning, middle, end to someone's journey. It can continue on for however long. And even though she's had to reinvent herself time and time again, as a whole, she's still relevant, and she's still creating content and music that spans not only her original fan base or fandom, but she's creating new generations of Taylor Swift fans as well, which is insane to me. Like,
and you touched on it there about how it's not just music, so it's the marketing of the music. Like, there are so many ways we can analyze and look into how she is having that effect. And I think for us in communication studies, we're really lucky, because we are seeing so many changes in society because of her and because of the achievements she has, or the moments in her career where things have could perhaps be the downfall, but they weren't, because she turns them into something that becomes unique to her.
Yeah.
And it's that ability to actually approach and analyze what she's doing as a businesswoman, as an artist, creatively. There are so many ways that we could look at this. And so like we're communication studies. We had the Swiftposium recently where it was deliberately interdisciplinary. So we were learning about urban planning and public transport to get to a Taylor concert. There are so many like elements of how we can learn our society and our city planning. How do we have scammers who are using Taylor themed threats during like there were so many
hook bait whoever they want to scam. It's insane because they know that that's what's going to pull an audience, that's also going to grab someone's attention. And these are all learnings. We saw so much of it at the Swiftposium. It was incredible. I soaked up every minute of that. But we're seeing that play out in real life as well. Like while a week after the Swiftposium was the actual Melbourne Eras tour, and the impact that had on the city was insane. I think.
Well, it's not even just the people attending or the people coming into the city for it. It's the people who aren't necessarily fans, but have to live through it. They're aware that there are all of these people coming in. And so, like, what can we even learn for Auckland from that? Because Eden Park could perhaps have like 50,000. Melbourne, the MCG had 96,000 for 3 nights. Like each night, 96,000 people. Like how could Auckland actually learn from that? How can we establish what we might need now
in order to bring that in? Because the impact that had on their business, their economy, over just 3 days was almost 100 million, I want to say. It was like in the 80, 90 millions over just 3 days. And I think the impact that they estimated for Auckland was roughly the same, like an extra 70, 80 million for New Zealand. And then we're seeing that kind of play out in her upcoming Europe tour, European leg of the tour. And there's people going, avoid these dates, or this city, this part will be like shut down, or plan ahead for your transport and flights because things will be like more expensive, more busy. And if we look at the reason why, it's like it's Taylor Swift, she's coming. And so we're seeing these shifts and changes in how a city functions and runs because of Taylor Swift. I mean, we saw in Melbourne, public transport was changing, extended hours of everything, special trams and all that, just because she was coming, and that was impacting people's everyday lives as well.
And hopefully one day, if we could like set these things up, we could have the exclusive performances by Taylor Swift here in Auckland, and we would keep all the Swiftie New Zealand fans dollars in New Zealand instead of all going over to Melbourne. Even Japan. There were people traveling to Japan for it.
People traveling all over the world. And it's like, if we can keep that here and also just have her here, how incredible would that be? And I think it would open up a lot of pathways for Auckland as a city. Like public transport would have to shift hugely. And I know there's that whole stereotype that Auckland transport is a little bit annoying. And hey, that could be an opportunity. Taylor Swift's coming, something's got to change. How can we can listen to that talk on urban planning.
Let's redevelop Auckland Taylor's version. Well, thank you so much, Angela. It has always been so much fun chatting Taylor because she is everywhere. Like, she is impacting so many elements of our life. So
thank you forever, but thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in today.